Hey there, vcehhd students. My name's Andy. I'm a VC Health and Human Development teacher. In this short video, we're looking at the WHO prerequisites for health. This is relevant to Unit 1 HHD for the 2025 to 2029 study design. HHD students, you might like to check us out on social media. You can see there we've got an Instagram page, TikTok, and also a Facebook page. If you follow us, you'll get alerts to videos, opportunities, and HHD tips and advice. And we've also got our email there, info@thehih.net.au, if you'd like to get in touch. So what part of the course does this relate to? So you can see there the Unit 1 key knowledge and key skills. So the prerequisites for health is determined by the WHO. And you can see there those 9 different prerequisites, which we'll touch on in this video. And also the key skill, discuss how access to prerequisites for health can promote positive health outcomes. And it's important to always take a look at the relevant key skill when it comes to HHD and VCE, because you can see here that this is really showing you how you should be framing the knowledge that you've learned about these prerequisites. And so you should be thinking about, in answers, how can you show how these prerequisites can promote positive health outcomes? And we'll chat about what a positive health outcome is in a moment. So what are the WHO prerequisites for health? So you might have heard that the WHO, or the World Health Organization, is the health branch of the United Nations. And so essentially they've said to achieve adequate levels of health across the globe, there's certain prerequisites that individuals and people should have access to. And so they're mentioned there. So peace, shelter, education, food, income, a stable ecosystem, sustainable resources, social justice, and equity. So essentially a prerequisite is something that's required. So that means that when you are answering a question about these prerequisites, make sure that you try to answer, I guess, in that sense, that you're not talking about the opposite. So, for example, if you're talking about the prerequisite peace, try to talk about how peace can promote positive health outcomes, not the opposite of peace, which is conflict. Try to focus on people having this particular prerequisite and what that means for promoting health outcomes. And so health outcomes, if you see that in a HHD question across Unit 1, 2, and Unit 3, 4, that's referring to both the health and wellbeing dimensions. So you would have, I'm sure, covered those in class, as well as health status indicators. You might not have covered those yet, but they'll be coming up soon. And so essentially that means that depending on how many marks the question is worth, you can refer to one or more health and wellbeing dimensions, as well as one or more health status indicators in your answer. And so you've got the flexibility of linking to either of those when a question refers to health outcomes. And we've got a sample question and answer coming up where I'll show you that a little bit more. So let's just touch on each of these WHO prerequisites briefly. So you can see that peace is the absence of conflict. So when using this as an example in an answer, think about what people are able to do when there are high levels of peace. So they're able to attend school or attend work or participate in their community, and then link that to dimensions of health and well-being. I'd probably recommend setting up like a table as part of your notes where you've got, I guess, down one side of the table, the 9 different prerequisites, and then across the top, the 5 different dimensions of health and well-being, and practice linking in, okay, to each of these prerequisites to those dimensions. And then you might have a column as well, okay, for health status indicators. And so by practicing doing this, when it gets to an assessment or a question and you're asked to link a prerequisite to a health outcomes, then you've done it before as part of your table and practice, so it won't take as long for you to sit there and think about what you should do. The next one is shelter, so a structure that provides protection from the outside environment. So you can think about what people are protected from if they have access to shelter. So protected from things like the elements, so it might be storms or severe heat or extreme cold, but also it's a gathering place where people and family can come together and connect. The next one is education. So you can see the process of facilitating learning, acquisition of knowledge, skills, values, beliefs, and habits. So I'd always encourage my students, if you're using education as an example of a prerequisite, to mention what people are likely to have learnt if they've gone to school. So it might be the importance of regular physical activity or the risks associated with smoking, or they might be learning problem-solving skills or logical reasoning skills. So if you can give some of those examples, you can then link some of those to dimensions of health and well-being. Obviously, you can talk about also meeting friends and developing relationships. So there's lots of opportunities there for education. Food, so a substance which can provide nutritional support for an organism. So when it comes to HHD, you can talk about how consumption and access to food gives individuals energy to then be able to do daily tasks or participate in sporting activities or attend work or school. But you can also talk about food and the nutrients that are consumed can help to boost the immune system, that can promote the functioning of the body and help to fight off disease. The next one is income. So obviously money individuals can exchange, okay, and then therefore receive a good or a service. And so what can people afford if they've got access to income? So you can link to things like healthcare or maybe things like adequate shelter. So there's lots of opportunities of linking into different things with income. A stable ecosystem. So that mentions a community that consists of a balance of all the living and non-living components of a particular area. So essentially it's talking about, I guess, the environment, the living and non-living parts of the environment, so water, air, the organisms that live there. And if it's stable, that generally means that there is stable weather patterns. So there's less likely to be as severe storms or as extremes in weather, heat and cold. So individuals are more likely to be able to engage in that environment, okay, in a safe manner. And it also means that organisms like plants and animals are able to grow adequately, and they're also a source of food, obviously, for individuals, but also a source of things like medicines, like antibiotics. So there's links that you can make there to a stable ecosystem. Sustainable resources. So you can see their resources that meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So essentially that's kind of the description or definition of sustainability. So I'd always give an example of a sustainable resource when linking to this prerequisite. So you might use the phrase an ongoing access or ongoing source, okay, of sustainable water or ongoing access to, say, timber or food. So it means that individuals can access this resource on an ongoing basis. And then what can they do with that? So if it's water, then they can be appropriately hydrated, or food, have adequate energy or shelter, okay, be able to build structures, from timber. So ongoing access to timber help them to build structures like shelter and be protected from the environment. So make sure you're always giving an example of a sustainable resource when you're using this example here. Social justice. Okay, so social justice is referencing equal rights for all, regardless of a range of different personal traits. You can see some examples there. And so when social justice is achieved as a prerequisite, that means that people have equal opportunities for things like education and employment. And what does that then mean for individuals? Well, they're able then obviously to learn skills and knowledge and earn income. So you can make links in that way. And also how people will feel in an environment where they do have equal access and they're not discriminated against. And so you can make links in there to different dimensions. And then equity. So equity is different from equality. So be careful with this one here. So it's talking about minimum levels of income and resources that all people should have access to. So it's really talking about sort of fairness and ensuring that within society that disadvantaged groups, okay, can have access to resources to achieve high levels of or adequate levels of health and well-being that other groups, okay, might just be able to achieve even though they don't necessarily have these additional opportunities. So it's really talking about how we should all have opportunities to achieve adequate levels of health and well-being, and that some people require some additional assistance to help them to achieve that. So you can make links into health and well-being from that as well. Okay, so here's a sample question and a sample answer. So it says there, describe how the access to the WHO prerequisite income may promote health outcomes for an individual. So you can see that obviously the focus is income, and it says their health outcomes. So as I mentioned, that means you can link into either health and well-being or health status. Now there's no marks allocated to this particular question here, but if it, for example, is worth 4 marks, then I'd be linking into both the health and well-being dimension with an example of what income means, and also then a health status indicator, so showing a bit of variety in your answer. But for example, this could be worth 2 marks, this question here. And so the sample answer there says, with access to income, an individual is more likely to be able to afford healthcare, such as a doctor's appointment when they're unwell. That means they can receive treatment for a health condition, helping to promote the functioning of their body and systems and promote their physical health and well-being. So you're showing in the first sentence what sort of income means an individual is able to afford, and then linking that into a specific example of a dimension. So you can see their functioning of the body and their systems for physical health and well-being if they can receive treatment from that, healthcare that they've been able to afford through income. Down the bottom, you can see there is a link to our website where there's opportunities for HHD students and teachers. So you might like to check that out. And this is more so for Unit 3 and 4 students, but we've got a health book that I've been able to partner with ACE with and work on some practice questions for Unit 3 and 4 students. So you might want to let your Unit 3 and 4 classmates or students at your school know that that's available if they're looking for some extra practice questions for SAC and lead up to the exam, and something you might like to keep in mind for Unit 3 and 4. And also, as I mentioned, as our website there, you can check out where there's opportunities for HHD students and teachers. Hopefully you found this video useful. Thanks so much.